Hi, Trilogy folks. This is Lyle Hansen, and I'm here today with Linda Farrell, who is going to be telling you some stories about the Sunrise Loop Trail.
And all the wildlife that you may or may not see along the Sunrise Loop Trail. We're entering the trail off of Adair Creek Drive, and so we're on a spur trail. There are two other entrances to this trail, one off of Vine Maple and one off of out of Division 1 along the golf cart trail into the Sunrise Loop area. And this is a spur trail. We'll be walking down it, and possibly, Lyle, if you could zoom in on the sign, it will show you that it is about a mile loop trail, and it has all different sorts of surfaces, from the bark to gravel and a bit of asphalt that we walk along the golf cart trail. So let's get started. I'll tell you a bit about myself. I thought I'd tell you a bit about myself before we get started. I'm a longtime Trilogy resident. I've lived here 15 years. The last 4, I have served on the Forest Stewardship Committee, as has Lyle for the past couple, and previous to that. Way before that, I was a friend of the forest and helped clear the overbrush along the trail, blackberry removal, all that sort of thing. So I'm pretty intimately acquainted with the trail system, and I've been retired now for about 7 years from Woodland Park Zoo, the education department, having served 30 years there in all sorts of capacities. So I kind of know wildlife, and I sure have experienced it along the Sunrise Loop Trail. But today, we may not see any of the mammals or, in fact, any of the fauna, but we will definitely see some of the flora, the plants along the trail that I want to call your attention to. And they're all intertwined, the plants, the animals, and us. Our first stop along the trail is to view these amazing plants. They are actually plants, they're flowers. They're called Indian pipes, or ghost plants, or corpse plants. Because of their really white, faint white color, they're very rare, so we are so fortunate to have these here in our Trilogy Sunrise Loop Forest. And they are actually flowers. They have no chlorophyll, which is what makes leaves green. Instead, they live off the detritus and the fungi in the soil. That's where they get their nutrients from. I've heard they're mildly toxic. I wouldn't try to eat them, but if you're really desperate and you need to eat them, I've heard they taste like asparagus. So let's, in case. We're still on the spur trail leading in, but I see signs of another animal, a human animal. It's a painted rock, and it's so much fun that our Trilogy residents have placed these throughout the trails in hidden spots. So keep your eyes open all the time. They're delightful. So we have now finished walking along the Adair Creek Spur Trail to the Sunrise Loop, and we're now at the beginning of the loop walk. We're going to circle, do a big loop up past the golf course, and then back down this trail that we're standing at. So, okay, here we are at the beginning of Sunrise Loop, and right away I see some signs of animals. Subterranean animals. They may be hard for you to see right now because they're kind of old, but there's a burrow that kind of follows the path. Occasionally, little animals' burrows go under the trail and kind of undermine it, so watch your footing. This possibly was made by a mountain beaver. What you say? Have you ever heard of a mountain beaver? It's not a beaver, but it is a small rodent, one of the most primitive rodents there are. It's about the size of your two fists put together, and it tunnels under the ground using its really long claws. Kind of resembles in the face a beaver, but it does not have that big flat tail. You will probably never see one, but you might, because they pop out of their burrows. They eat sword ferns, bracken ferns. Occasionally they grab a stem from a rhododendron, pull it back into their burrow. I did have the pleasure of coming across one right here on Sunrise Loop, so you may too. Also, little moles make these hills, and above ground, just last week, I saw a Pacific jumping mouse. Now I hope Lyle will be able to fit in this picture into this virtual tour. It's a little teeny yellow mouse with the longest tail you've ever seen, probably 3 times the length of its body. It is a jumping mouse. It's yellow and it can jump up to 5 feet. So hopefully, I think I saw it because I feared the little critter wasn't doing real well and not feeling well when I came across him, but I was able to get a picture. Okay, another sign that a human has been through here. This is called a geocache. It's another treasure along the Trilogy trails. Dave Robinson, a Trilogy resident, has been really involved in secreting about 13 of these at various hidden locations along the Trilogy trails. And if you have the app, geocache app, you can track them down with clues and GPS coordinates to uncover treasures inside these boxes. You take a treasure out, you leave a treasure behind. Great thing for you to do with your grandkids. And if you're curious at all about it, just keep watching the Trilogy News. He's sure to offer a class in the future about how to geocache. We're now entering the portion of Sunrise Loop that runs along the golf cart trail. I think behind us there is the 16th hole. I picked that up when we were able to walk the golf course while the closure because of the pandemic was occurring. So I believe 16th hole, we're heading this way. If we took this trail, the golf cart trail, all the way out, we'd get back into Trilogy, and if you keep heading in that direction, you'd eventually make it up to the clubhouse. Right along the golf cart trail, I was walking one morning early, and down the path a bit, I came across a bear who was minding its own business, just in the underbrush, heading across the trail. And so I stopped, used proper bear protocol, stopped, backed up slowly, and then went in the other direction. And it's really important that you don't keep going, that you don't try to get closer to the bear. The bear is as afraid of you as you are of it, and generally they're very human averse, but still respecting the wildlife is so important. Lyle has a story to tell about a mother and a cub a little bit further along the trail, so I'll leave that one to him. But mothers and cubs, you don't want to get between them. That's all I'll say with that. Again, here we are with more evidence of wildlife. We're pausing to have a golf cart go by. Good morning. Okay, has it been running? Okay, so more evidence of wildlife. This time, the avian type of wildlife, birds. Maybe you've heard when you're walking through the forest a giant rat-tat-tat against the wood. It possibly is a pileated woodpecker. They're those big woodpeckers about the size of a crow with a red head. And what evidence that they've been working on this tree, way up there, they peck away looking for little carpenter ants and other types of bugs. And they provide homes, their holes provide homes for other wildlife. So everybody, all of us are intertwined with the wildlife we share in our Trilogy forest. That's it. Okay, here we are. We're going to veer off the golf cart trail now. If you continued on, you'd eventually get to the Trilogy Clubhouse. But the Sunrise Loop Trail goes in this direction, so we're head on down the trail. As you are aware, Sunrise Loop circles a wetland, and lots of water drains into that wetlands from the roads above, from the hills and everything. And this is a retention pond catching some of that water. In the spring, in the fall, when the rains return to Trilogy, this will get really full, overflow, spill down, and eventually end up in this major wetlands we're coming to along Sunrise Loop. I have seen a lot of frogs in here during the season, and the chorus of the little Pacific tree frogs that you can hear in February, March, loud, loud voices from little teeny green tree frogs. It's abundant through here and all our wetlands, really. Also, you might happen to see garter snakes. They're very shy. They will slither off the trail because they hear you coming along. They can feel the sound waves through the ground. Harmless. Garter snakes are harmless, and they're really good for the environment. We have no poisonous snakes here in Western Washington. We do in Eastern Washington, but you're safe here from venomous snakes. And that's because they're cold-blooded, and going up over the Cascade Mountain Range, it's too cold. They will die. They hibernate on the eastern side, the venomous snakes, or our snakes too can hibernate if we have a really tough winter. Also, Lyle has a story about a bullfrog he saw along the trail, and I'll let him tell that closer to the spot where we saw that big frog, and I'll tell you a bit more about it. During this time of year, you're liable to come across plentiful berries along the trail. These are huckleberries. No, they're not dark blue huckleberries. They're red huckleberries, but they're equally tasty both for us and for the wildlife that calls the Trilogy Forest its home. And here we are in front of salal. And salal is a native plant. You'll see it all over the forest. And what you might not know is its berries as well, once they turn a dark color, are very edible. And they taste a little bit like blueberries, just a little bit. Native Americans used to crush them up and dry them into a fruit leather to last throughout the winter. You'll also see blackberries. I just spotted one. Thimbleberries. It's a salad bar for humans and wildlife. Here we are at another confluence of trails. This is the spur trail. This is a trail called the Fairways Trail, and we want to stay on the Sunrise Loop by veering off to the left. Along the Sunrise Loop Trail, you'll find really nice little benches that have been installed by the Forest Stewardship Committee of hand-hewn logs, well, maybe not hand-hewn, but of logs. And then peppered throughout the wetlands and the forests, you'll see Boy Scout, Eagle Scout projects, like this horse dismount and a spot to tether your horse, because further down you'll see the bridge that does not allow horses on it. It is not structurally sound for horses. Talking about Eagle Scout projects, bat boxes like this one here are throughout the Trilogy forests. This particular bat box is designed to be a home for little brown bats. Why would we want to put up a house for bats? Let me tell you, bats are so helpful to have, particularly around wetlands like we'll be approaching real soon, and mosquitoes. They eat thousands of mosquitoes, so they're so helpful for the environment and for humans too, keeping those mosquitoes at bay.
3.
And here we are at the gem of the Sunrise Loop, the wetlands. It abounds with wildlife. You can see dragonflies flitting across the surface. And during the migratory bird season, in the spring and in the fall, all manners of birds are out here. I've seen eagles, bufflehead, mergansers, great blue herons, and I'm not even a birder. I've encountered birders along the trail, and they have seen wood ducks and all other kinds of ducks. So it's really delightful. There are frogs in here as well, and beavers. We'll see some evidence further down the road of beavers, but they call this wetlands their home for sure. Now these are the regular beavers that build dams, they build dens. They're the architects of the animal world. So beavers, as I mentioned before, claim this wetlands as their home, and they chew. They chew all kinds of things, and in the winter, when there's no little fresh green shoots for them to munch on, they will actually chew on big trees, like this one right over here. You can see we've put up a mesh to try to discourage them from eating this tree, which might fall right on our Sunrise Loop Bridge. They've already damaged this big cottonwood over on this side to the point where it has died, and that occurred over the past couple years. They're doing what beavers do. They're attempting to build their dams and to carry on with their lives. We're almost on our last leg of our journey around Sunrise Loop, but here again we have another spur trail coming off of Vine Maple. We're going to continue on down this way for the last third of our journey.
Right here in this very spot along the trail, this is Lyle talking now, in case you can't tell. I found a big, good-looking bullfrog sitting right there at that spot. And I thought, I wondered if he would be afraid of me. Nah, he ignored me. I had to step over him, take a big step. But he was happy there, warming himself on the trail.
I just wanted to add a few words about the bullfrog that Lyle saw. They can grow up to a pound. These bullfrogs are big, and hopefully Lyle will be able to find a picture to insert in this virtual tour of a bullfrog. They have teeth, they eat little pond turtles, they eat other small animals, and they are actually non-native. They were an introduced species. People brought them in from all over the country to put in their backyard ponds, and they spread all over western Washington. And because they do eat little pond turtles, our western pond turtle is now on the endangered status, a lot due to those bullfrogs. So they're really interesting, but they're also non-native. I guess I won't say anything more about them. But I do have a lot of other wildlife that you can see in a forest setting like this that I have actually witnessed on the Sunrise Loop, including coyotes, bobcat. Amazing, just the other day I was walking my neighbor's dog right along Sunrise Loop, and across the trail scampered two young coyotes. The dog I was with, oblivious, an old dog, but those coyotes were intrigued and they stood on a dead tree and kind of watched as we walked by. That's what living with wildlife is all about, us respecting them. And most of the time, most of these bigger mammals are human averse. They are shy of us. These happen to be young, so I think they were curious. But most of the time, they have disappeared into the underbrush before you can even catch a glimpse of them. Likewise, bobcats. I've seen bobcats, but usually once they see me, they're gone in a flash. Such a lovely, wonderful experience to encounter those wildlife, but probably chances are they will see you, but you won't see them. We're now at Q10, and it's notable for two reasons. The first, we have now completed the full Sunrise Loop. We're at the end. And the second reason is because Lyle has a story to share about what happened right here at Q10. Thank you for joining us on this virtual tour. A couple things I want to leave you with. I only covered the wildlife that I have actually seen right here on Sunrise Loop. But there are a multitude of other wildlife that we share our homes with, including raccoons, possums, deer, oh, our beloved deer, and also a very elusive cougar. And it's so important that we actually share our habitat, our world, with these animals. We respect them, we keep our dogs on their leashes, we don't put out our garbage until the day of pickup. We don't feed the birds birdseed throughout the summer and the active season of bears. All of that will make our encounters with wildlife much safer, and wildlife will be able to share their forest with us. So I thank you for joining us, and have a really good day. I hope to see you on the trails.
This is Lyle again. I was right here at Q10 where I saw a mama bear and her cub, and I was coming toward the mama bear and she threatened me a couple of times, and I decided I better take a exit out of here, so I backed up and went out Pine Maple Trail to escape. So it never hurts to have an exit strategy in case you come to a mama bear and her cub and you don't want to disturb them, because that makes mama very aggressive.